morning. I have an incredibly privileged position working with Accenture as a services company because we work across every geography, every industry, every use case. And so part of what Brian asked me to talk about is where's from that privileged position of being able to see each part of the ecosystem and participate in it, what are the observations and what is it where are we on this path to production at scale? We had a great event last night, the opening reception, welcome reception. I know many of you were able to make it. We filled the room nicely, focused on diversity. I want to start with diversity in terms of getting to production at scale, because I see as maybe one of our most important impediments our ability to attract every aspect of our talent pool in this space as just being incredibly important. And for those of you who are tracking along with me, we're going to have a quick race to hire Alexis as soon as she's finished and graduating. But we had a great event last night, and if I talk about kind of where we are from a diversity perspective quickly, it's dire in terms of the our tapping into talent pools. The fall off of women in computer science is dramatic. The representation in Silicon Valley tech jobs, we're starting to focus on quantitatively measuring the magnitude and impact of this problem of not being able to attract a diverse enough talent base into this space in particular. And it's not just women, obviously, it's the full component of diversity. And then I use this for humor, but it hit me personally, and you'll see why. Even at certainly at the top of organizations, there are more Daves as CEOs than women CEOs, and so it's just to add some levity to what is a dire problem. So we're hugely focused on this. We think the talent base is actually a key factor in the speed at which we get to scale with this technology. If I go a little bit into where we are today and some observations, let's talk about just the analyst views, right? So the analysts, and I think a few may be in the room, IDC, Gartner, we're now seeing the range of analysts, fully now covering distributed ledger technology, and it's all incredibly optimistic now about the growth potential, and we are facing a hockey stick's worth of growth, arguments as to how quickly it's going to happen. I think across the board, what our observations from the work that's underway, and if you take a look at some of the a compilation of data that we've put together, no surprise in terms of even the comments today and from last night. We've got financial services got out first and fastest, and and has put the most investment into this so far. I think quickly going to be eclipsed by manufacturing. This is supply chain, both physical but also digital. But the really encouraging thing to me is the participation across all industries. Right? We see every single industry, every geography on some stage of the spectrum of evaluating how this technology can be valuably applied. There is also a ton of hype, and I think we're fighting through this dynamic of many senior executives initially reacting negatively to the hype, but now realizing that it's important to have a strategy, know where this is headed, know how the development of these blockchain ecosystems are going to impact their organization, and how do they fit within the ecosystems and the new value systems that are going to be created. This is a gross oversimplification, but I'm going to use it anyway. So I think if I think back to our third year anniversary, and if I use 2015 as a date, I think by and large, if I generalize that, I think we've covered what is it. I think we've covered how to use it, across the board. I think we're still, industry by industry, context by context, really zeroing in on the value that it can have. I thought, Aaron, you did a fantastic job this morning. I think the efficiency aspect of looking at the messaging-based business models in our organizations and stripping out that messaging and what a shared data construct can achieve is a fantastic foundation. I think it's the foundation. I think that we are, from a value perspective, going to get very, very creative. Can it scale? Again, Aaron, I love the numbers up there around the health transaction throughput. Rob's in the room. The work that we do with the DTCC around transaction throughput in a U.S. equities clearing context. We're now seeing multiple projects that we're engaged in, that some of our alliance partners are engaged in, where the question is no longer how to use it, why it's valuable, but it's can you really tune it and maximize the throughput and performance of this to meet every single use case, and I'm hugely optimistic about that. The next phase is, as we think about serious transformation of entire business ecosystems and the new products and services, I think this is going to be the most fun phase of this experience. I think the creativity, if I use overuse the analogy of we're in the pick your year of the 90s of the internet, we're using it, we're applying it. No one has thought of Alexa yet. So our ability to think of what our equivalent of Alexa is, I think is incredibly exciting. I'm going to pick up speed here. How many people bought that phone? Sometimes the crowd's too young, but that was the first category killer cell phone, right? That first Nokia that the entire corporate world went out and bought. For me, it changed my life, right? It made me change from looking at every payphone as an opportunity to connect to my network and get my messages to suddenly I could be reached anytime, anywhere. We can talk about whether that's a good or bad thing, but the point is, personally, I think that's where we are with blockchain. We've got the first functional, usable instances, V1s of the platforms that can be used in production, drive value. The massive amount of, I left it in my bag. I usually pull my iPhone X out of my pocket. The massive amount of innovation that's to come to get from that phone to the one that we all carry around is what's ahead of us. And so part of what we focus on enormously is helping as our clients, as the ecosystems that we're working in, adopt this technology, really focusing on being on a constant modernization stance. Building technical architectures that would allow you to rapidly move along with how this technology is moving, because it's not a valid reason, we think, to not jump in because you want to wait for the next version, because I think you lose too much in terms of how the new ecosystems are being designed, how the new value ecosystems are being designed, the learning that you get from the technology. But it can be paralyzing if you say, well, wait, if I wait another quarter, I can be on the next version. So being able to constantly modernize is critical. I've talked about scalable, maintainable. You've seen elements of it already this morning, right? The certification processes, the tooling that is now being developed, the abstraction. Brian talked about the project Ursa, taking the more complicated components, the enabling tools, the support mechanisms. Those are all maturing incredibly fast, and it's a big confidence builder. If I press ahead, a lot of our time is focused now on the value and business side of this. Right? Empowered with what this technology can do, it's really now all about how do you redefine and have very strategic game theory, scenario analysis-based conversations with groups of clients, which is not something that, certainly for a consulting business, but broadly in industry, generally speaking, we always thinking about, you're taking a solution to a client. This technology is fundamentally different, and now you're talking about the relationships of multiple parties together in an ecosystem. Being able to really articulate the value is critical. So we've kicked off work with the World Economic Forum we're doing a whole CEO survey right now, where we've got a draft framework for a value analysis. We're working with some of you on. We're doing it in a very open fashion, inviting everyone in to see if we can't articulate a value framework that can be then reused and applied across ecosystems. The other thing I think is critically important that we're seeing is the early exuberance around you figure out what this technology is and how to apply it. The early exuberance and almost required early exercises of let me take my current business process and let me enable it with this technology. It's important. What's much more important is to take a giant step back and say, actually, let's rethink this. So now that we know what it can do, can we actually transform the business process, not do what I feel personally complicit in my 20-plus years in financial services? We've been digitizing the analog process for decades, right? We proverbially still are wheelbarrowing the paper tickets from the New York Stock Exchange down to Rob at the DTCC in electronic form, and our ability to now actually say, let's take a giant step back and think about how to actually transform, knowing now that we can strip out the messaging, we can be in a shared data construct. That ability across industries we're now seeing as the dominant discussion. It's no longer dominant on the tech. It's dominant on how do we actually change these business models. Symbiotic, I think Brian said it and the like, if we don't see value, if there isn't value for everyone in the network, it doesn't work. And so the predatory, monopolistic, I want to be the first in so I can rule the world dynamic is antithetical to what this technology is. It's antithetical to progress, and it's those efforts are starting to fail. And we're seeing a lot more success from the more from those efforts that really are concerned with that symbiosis and value for all dynamic. And then the last point I'll make around governed. Again, we're seeing the capabilities form around how to, once you form these ecosystems, how do you have the appropriate circuit breakers and thresholds and governance mechanisms and the advancement in terms of being really ready for production at true scale. So I'm going to just now quickly, because I have to wrap up, breeze through a bunch of slides that I'm not going to cover. Just Brian wanted me to highlight a few of the key. I went too far. Nope, I didn't. Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, partnership with Intel and the Floor, which is an Israeli fintech hub, to look at securities clearing in Israel. The CATHAY Pacific, really interesting work around loyalty programs and the ability to speed up the use and spending and the ecosystem of rewards points and sharing of rewards points information between the travel and hospitality industry. The MAS work around Project Ubin, the impact on wholesale bank payments infrastructure and the ability to accomplish real-time gross settlement, liquidity management between the entire wholesale banking industry. Zurich Insurance, a whole notion of surety bonds, $3+ billion industry that is just ripe for modernization. We are seeing in the insurance industry catch on like fire. Obviously, we heard about Food Trust and the IBM Food Trust product this morning and the supply chain. We're seeing this happen across every industry. I am out of time intentionally. We've crammed 30 minutes of material into 10, but it was really just to kind of try to inspire some dialogue to happen in the corridors and over coffee. We're here. I'm here through Monday, actually. Looking forward to, if anyone hasn't signed up for the hackathon who would like to, please do. We're going to do the hackathon over the weekend, and with that, I will stop.
Thank you.